Good morning, metalheads of the internet, and welcome to a brand new episode of the Metal Meltdown. Today we are talking about the latest studio album from Norwegian black metal icons Darkthrone, entitled Astral Fortress. But before we do that, I want to remind you one last time, real quickly, that the Metal Meltdown is hosting its very special live Halloween party tomorrow, October 30th, at approximately 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're gonna drink, we're gonna sing, we're gonna dance, we're gonna eat candy and party, we're gonna play a bunch of video games, including, by popular demand, Alien Isolation, one of the scariest video games ever made, in my personal and humble opinion. Everyone's invited for the record, but we all know it's just not going to be a party if you specifically, you watching this video, are not there. We need you. We need your party power. So do yourself a favor, do all of us a favor, and just be there tomorrow, October 30th. Hell yeah. The irony here, though, is I don't think anyone is going to be in a party mood once I say what I'm about to say, but screw it. I've no interest in pulling my punches. I've no interest in being disingenuous with y'all. So, here we go. Consequences be damned. This new Darkthrone album, Astral Fortress, it's pretty lame. Pretty boring. Pretty thoroughly not good, in my opinion. Truth be told, I've never really fully understand the love and the appeal for Darkthrone. I mean, I get it. They are massively influential to the foundation and to the further development and evolution of Norwegian and second wave black metal. I'm not a huge fan of records like Transylvanian Hunger, Blaze in the Northern Sky, Under a Funeral Moon, but I understand why these are so important to so many people, and I will agree that they are probably some of the most iconic and influential black metal records of all time. But like, damn, all that aside, I just don't care about those records. Frankly, I think Darkthrone is significantly more interesting and more entertaining when they're experimenting outside of black metal. For instance, Soulside Journey, their debut album, which shows them leaning more towards classic death metal. I think that's legitimately a pretty decent record. I also really like the stuff that Darkthrone was putting out in the late 2000s and early 2010s. Records like The Cult Is Alive, FOAD, The Underground Resistance, the Nawabam EP, all of which showcase the band experimenting with crust punk and classic heavy metal and first wave black metal. And while I'm not a colossal fan of Arctic Thunder or Eternal Hails, I do kind of like the idea of blending like classic black metal production and polish and atmosphere with some very simplistic kind of cavemanish doom metal. That's neat. That's an interesting concept. It just hasn't been the most well executed, that's all. And unfortunately, Astral Fortress is the most not well executed of these three because it leans the heaviest into like that kind of classic black metal ethos, and as such has probably some of the most derivative and some of the most generic and one-dimensional beats and riffs I've heard from a kind of black metal record in a long time. And it doesn't even have the energy of something like maybe the most recent Retain or even something from Devilmaster or Spectral Wound to get me really excited and invested. The songwriting is just so basic and so repetitive. It's basically a bunch of like Hellhammer, Bathory, very early Celtic Frost worship with some doomy sprinkles here and there. As such, the album feels very monotonous and very predictable. Impeccable Caverns of Satan, for instance, is an incredibly slow-paced track that never really goes anywhere, often just kind of bouncing back and forth between some very weak and basic guitar pounding, and one of the most awkward and clumsy lead guitar riffs I think I've ever heard on a Darkthrone record. There's also Caravan of Broken Ghosts, which for 8 minutes tries to emulsify some kind of fiery first-wave black metal riffery in the vein of like a more aggressive Merciful Fate with some very one-dimensional kind of classic doom plotting. And it just fails miserably. The transitions from section to section feel so unnatural. There's no fluidity or cohesion to anything. It feels as if Darkthrone wrote two completely different songs and literally just forced them together. Then there's Kobolten, West of the Vast Forest, which just kind of wastes time with 2 minutes of like semi-anxious noise and ambience transitioning poorly into the closing number, Eon 2. Though I will say, since we're on the topic, Eon 2, not that bad of a cut. It makes for a pretty half-decent album closer. It has a little bit more urgency and weight to it, thanks to some classic metal sheen in the form of some guitar harmonies and some crushing, galloping rhythms near the very end. The best songs on this record, though, would probably be Stalagmite Necklace and The Sea Beneath the Seas of the Sea, because they live up most to what I think Darkthrone is trying to really do on this album. There are some grandiose, atmospheric keyboards contrasted with grim, dark, blackened doom metal riffery. It almost feels like vintage Seraph Ungol, but with like a really old school kind of black metal, extreme metal coat of paint. That's kind of cool. That kind of works, but unfortunately these tracks still don't really live up to their full potential because of Fenriz's very one-dimensional approach to vocals. This man has never had a massive voice, and I don't expect him to grow one overnight, not at this point. But if you're going to be playing some more epic material, I would like to hear something a little bit more epic. I'd like something with a little bit more range and power and magnitude as opposed to a series of incomprehensible grunts. Plus, side note, The Sea Beneath the Seas of the Sea does not need to be 10 minutes and 10 seconds long. You could easily trim 4 minutes worth of unnecessary fat from this thing and lose nothing. Plus, side note, The Sea Beneath the Seas of the Sea does not need to be 10 minutes and 10 seconds long. Period. Not even up for debate. Like, I am absolutely positively certain that we could remove at least 4 minutes worth of unnecessary and unhealthy fat from this thing, and we'd be left with maybe not quite a Michelin star meal, but at the very least, something that could be microwaved late at night, thrown onto a sandwich, and I wouldn't throw up. I don't hate this record by any stretch. Even at its absolute worst, it's by no means, like, unlistenable or, like, truly horrifyingly incompetent or offensive or anything like that. I'm mostly just kind of bored by so much of what's on here. Like, for every moment that I find myself enjoying, there's another that I think is kind of sloppy, or another that I just have no reaction to whatsoever. I will say that the production does a pretty good job at creating something that is occasionally kind of chilling and immersive and atmospheric, much like a classic Darkthrone record, and much like a lot of the records that Darkthrone is taking inspiration from on this thing. I'm going to give this thing a 2, but leaning scarily close to a 1.5 out of 5. Like, if you were to push me even a little bit, boom, this album would suddenly be in 1.5 out of 5 territory. There are just enough semi-standout and okay-ish moments for me to say that it wasn't a bad record, but, like, there's still a part of me that just wants to say that it's a bad record, because there's so much about this that just isn't really well implemented. Like, the record lacks cohesion, and the songwriting is just kind of messy, and nothing is really brought together in, like, in a fashion that is seamless. Longtime fanatics and black metal nerds, I think, will be pretty excited, pretty happy, elated with this thing, because it is the closest to that kind of classic Darkthrone black metal sound in a long time. But they're really the only people I would recommend this to. Like, if you were brand new to Darkthrone, I would probably recommend something like Transylvanian Hunger or A Blaze in the Northern Sky over this. And I don't even really like those records, as I've already told you. Hell, I'd recommend the crust punk stuff over this, or even Arctic Thunder over this. So yeah, there you have it. I might get in trouble for this one, but fuck it, I don't care. Astral Fortress, Darkthrone, not quite okay, not quite bad. It's just, it's an album. It's a Darkthrone album. It's pretty poor, pretty not good. Yeah, And that is it for the Metal Meltdown. I'm not an expert, nor do I claim to be. So what do you think? Do you like this record? Do you not like this record? And what do you want to hear from me next? Thank you for watching. Make sure you press subscribe right here so you get updates on the Metal Meltdown fucking immediately. And as always, you have yourself a fantastic fucking day.